I am going to go ahead and turn it over to Chef Christine, and the evening is all yours. So thank you, everybody.
Great. Well, welcome, everybody. Yes, as Jen said, my name is Christine, and I am the chef and owner here at Mise Cooking School. 2021 starts our 17th year. So Jen, 15 years would make sense. So yeah, 17th year of offering unique cooking classes, private events, corporate team building events. Due to COVID, things have certainly changed, but they have not stopped. So we are still offering virtual corporate team buildings. We're still doing private friends and family events virtually, same thing with the corporate virtually, as well as these cooking classes. And, you know, Jen and I were discussing earlier, the COVID is horrible, but some of the outcomes have challenged a lot of us businesses to come up with different ideas. And so the virtual has really allowed me to expand my services, my cooking classes globally. So I've done some corporate team building events with folks in London, with folks in Geneva. So it's been a lot of fun to cook with those people and with my friends and family who live all throughout the United States. So if ever you want to take a really fun cooking class, most of them are Friday evenings. Of course, we have a few more coming up with the Chesterfield Library that I'm really excited about. We have an April and a May class coming up. And I just sent Jen those menus. So they're really, really full of spring bounty. So it's been, a lot of fun to do this. And please, if you have any questions at all, unmute yourself and ask me any questions. I will go over quickly a few housekeeping things that were my mistakes. So if you have your recipes with you, whether you're cooking with me or just, watching, the lemon mascarpone trifle. So when I was doing my grocery list, I didn't realize until after that I have some of those ingredients doubled on there. So you really only need 3 lemons and you only need 4 eggs. You'll want to make sure that those eggs are out. That's going to be our second recipe. So you want those at room temperature. So you want to make sure that those 4 eggs are out, as well as your 1 stick of butter. So a 1/4 pound, 1 stick of butter. We want all those things at room temperature. So if you haven't already, make sure those things are out. And we are going to be making some whipped cream. I have one of my favorite tools, which is just your classic hand mixer. But whenever I'm making whipped cream at home, I chill my bowl that I'm going to make that whipped cream in. So again, if you're cooking along with us and you're going to be using a hand mixer for the whipped cream, go ahead and put your bowl you can put it in the refrigerator or in the freezer. So go ahead and just pop that in the freezer. Now, at any point, which size eggs? So you can have your 4 extra large eggs out at room temperature. You do not need 8 eggs. You only need 4. That was my mistake, because under the ingredients, most of those ingredients are for the lemon curd. So I double printed that. So yes, 4 eggs and 3 lemons, 1 stick of butter. And we'll go through that recipe, together, but that's all that you need. So I apologize for that. That was my mistake. So what else? Okay, the term mise en place before we start. So, our first recipe is going to be the spinach salad. And everybody has the agenda as well, so that you know what we're going to make, in what order, and what things you needed to do ahead of time to get that prep ready. Mise en place, meaning getting all of your ingredients chopped, measured. I get a little anal sometimes. So for our salad, I have, my dressing measurements. I have my cranberries and my brown sugar. So I have everything already prepped and ready to go, so that when it comes time to cook and to prepare that dish, I'm just assembling. I'm just putting things in a pan. I don't have to worry about chopping that onion, starting to saute it. Then I realize I'm reading the recipe and I realize I have to go back now, and now I have to cube the chicken. Well, I haven't even gotten the chicken out of the package. So now I'm cubing up the raw chicken and realizing that my onions are starting to burn. My hands are all full of raw chicken. And that's at the point where you just kind of say, forget it. The smoke alarm is almost going off. So you want to make sure that you read the ingredients and how they need to be prepared, as well as the procedure. And then again, it's really just assembling and putting these things together so that you're nice and relaxed. Now, I do ask, and I know Jen said this too, make sure that your microphones are on mute, just to eliminate any background noise, whether you mistakenly curse or whether there are dogs, kids, whatever. And that just makes it easier for other people to hear me. But if you do have a question, feel free to unmute yourself or tell me, hey, give me 5 minutes. I can't see all of you. And the chat is kind of far from me. Oh, what is golden brown sugar? That can either be a light brown sugar or a dark brown sugar, but ideally a light brown sugar. So what I do ask, as you can see when I'm looking at the chat, I don't have my granny glasses on tonight. So it will take me a little bit to read the chat box. But if that's what you're more comfortable with, that's fine. Otherwise, feel free to unmute yourself and ask me. But the first dish that we are going to do together is the spinach salad. Now for the spinach salad, I did ask that you go ahead and pre-cook if you are using bacon, turkey bacon. I actually used a little bit of prosciutto. Oh, how much confectioner sugar? So when we get to that recipe, you're just adding as much as you need to sweeten it. I would say a tablespoon will probably be fine. But again, we'll go through that when we get to the trifle. So we're going to be making our own lemon curd, and we'll go through all of those steps together. But the sweetness is really depending on you, how sweet you like your whipped cream. And we are folding in a mascarpone. And if you had a hard time finding mascarpone cheese, you can definitely use a cream cheese. Like maybe the Greek yogurt cream cheese would be a great balance for that. But the mascarpone cheese, I found, is pretty accessible in Kroger, in Wegmans, Whole Foods, Publix. They should all have mascarpone cheese. So for the spinach salad, we are going to be making some candied pecans. I'm going to be using sliced almonds. That's just our preference in our home. That's the only nut that we can use. So we're going to just be making some nice sweet candied nuts with some bacon and some goat cheese and some cranberries. So this is just a really kind of classic spinach salad that we're just going to assemble, and then we're going to make a vinaigrette. Now, if you do not eat bacon, you can always use a turkey bacon, or you don't have to use anything at all. I know there is a fake-in bacon. I know that there is a fake bacon that you can certainly use. So this is, use what you have. If you don't have cranberries, raisins work well too. Any of the flavored craisins, the blueberry flavored craisins. It's just going to give us that nice sweetness in our spinach salad. So what you'll need first is a heavy saute pan. It doesn't matter if it's nonstick or not, but this is probably a 10-inch pan, I would think, about a 10-inch pan, but you want something that has a pretty heavy bottom to it. And you'll need a 1/4 cup of brown sugar, as well as some balsamic vinegar, 1 tablespoon of balsamic vinegar, and 1 tablespoon of olive oil. That's all you need to start with our candied nuts. You'll also want to have a foil-lined pan or tray once we transfer those candied nuts onto a tray. We don't want it to stick to that pan. So just put a little bit of nonstick spray on top of your foil. Okay, so we're going to heat this up first. We're going to stir, and I'm just going to use a fork for this. We have our brown sugar. So this is a 1/4 cup of packed brown sugar. And my heat is on a medium heat. So I have a gas cooktop. So I'm going to put mine on about a 5. And then I have my balsamic and my olive oil, 1 tablespoon of each. And if you didn't have balsamic vinegar, you could use a red wine vinegar. Even an apple cider vinegar would be fine. We just want that nice acid. So I'm going to take my fork and we are going to stir this until the sugar melts. And it should start to get nice and bubbly. So you want to break up those clumps and really mix it in there. Now, of course, if you are using a non-stick pan, you'll want to make sure that whatever you're stirring it with is either a wooden spoon or plastic kitchenware. You don't want to put metal. All right, so my sugar is pretty melted, and that shouldn't take long, a minute or 2. And now I just want it to start to get a little bubbly. So you should have your 1 cup. You could do pecan halves. You could do walnut halves. Again, I have some sliced almonds that I'm going to use. And I'm just waiting for this to get a little bit bubbly. And this will give us our sweet and salty nuts. So mine is just starting to bubble along the edge. Perfect. And this may take a couple of minutes, and that's okay, especially if you have a electric stove, which is what I have at home. Oftentimes that heat goes up and kind of goes down. I love coming to work because I get to work with a nice gas cooktop. So mine is I'm really getting some nice bubbles in my pan. So I'm going to take the almonds or whatever nuts you'd like. I'm going to toss those in. And I'm going to really coat, make sure that syrup coats all of the nuts. So this is going to take probably about 5 minutes or so. If you feel like it's really too hot, you can bring it down a notch. Oh, and it smells, ooh, you kind of get that whiff of the vinegar. But it does smell good. You know, and you can see that the nuts are really nice and syrupy. And what we're doing is we're making a caramel. We're cooking down this sugar. And for this salad, if you did not want to use, if you're not a goat cheese fan, you could absolutely use a feta cheese, which is really nice. Excuse me. I was really worried that we were going to get some big thunderstorms. Well, I think it's still lower. So I can see that I don't have a lot of liquid left in the pan, but I'm just going to let it sit. And I'm going to let it sit and sort of bubble. So now is the time when you can, so I have mine on about a 4.5, and I'm just going to let it cook. I'm just going to let it sit and just going to let it cook for another 2 to 3 minutes. And then make sure you have that foil lined pan. Oh, there is some thunder in like yes, Southern Chesterfield, closer to the southern part of the state. I know you are supposed to get a little bit worse weather. So make sure you have it could be a plate with some foil on top. It doesn't have to be any, special pan. We just want it to cool and we're going to be able to break it up a little bit with our fork. So I'm going to let that bubble. Oh, you can see the caramel. In the meantime, we can make the vinaigrette. So the vinaigrette, if you made your bacon, if you cooked your bacon, hopefully you saved a little bacon grease. Or if you're someone like myself who cooks bacon, I always have a little bit of bacon grease in the house. There's nothing like sauteing or frying up some potatoes with a little bit of bacon grease. So we're just gonna make a simple vinaigrette. Now, if you don't want to use the bacon grease in the salad dressing, you could use a little bit of Dijon mustard or some nice whole grain mustard in there too. And this is a quick whisk. So I have my 1 tablespoon of bacon grease, 2 tablespoons of the balsamic vinegar, and 4 tablespoons of olive oil. And you can put all of that together and if your bacon grease like mine is still a little bit solidified, the more you really stir it in there, I think I'm going to add a little bit more olive oil. The more you stir it and break it up, it will start to melt. Just with the heat of stirring, it will start to melt. And that's just going to give your salad dressing that smoky, a little bit salty bacon essence. Now, definitely take a taste of your vinaigrette before you add any salt or pepper, because again, we're using the bacon grease that already has a lot of salt in it. Let's see. Mine can use both some salt and a good pinch of pepper. Now I'm just using some ground black pepper. And then for my salt, I like to use a coarse sea salt. I have these grinders here where I can control how much, how thick how coarse the salt is. I find that the table salt is very, very fine, and it does have an iron taste to it, a metallic taste to it. So I like to know how much salt I'm putting in something. It comes out very fast. The table salt comes out very fast. And when you're using a coarser salt, you actually use a little bit less. Salt is definitely one of those ingredients where if you add too much, you can't take it out. So always err on the side of caution when you are using salt. You know, let it sit for a little bit, let those salt crystals dissolve, you know, and then certainly take a little taste. I'm going to let mine sit for a bit. And I think now, oh yeah, it's almost as if they're getting, you can smell it. You don't, it's a nice deep, deep color, but you can smell that caramel and you don't want it to burn. So pour it right into your prepared pan.
Chef Wansleben, while you're doing that, we have a question asking about the nuts. Can they be prepared ahead of time, and how long will they last in a closed container?
You can great question. You can absolutely prepare these ahead of time. I mean, really, you can sprinkle these on all sorts of different things. Before you store them, definitely let them cool completely. And then they'll probably last in an airtight container. I would not put them in the refrigerator. You can just keep them out in a pantry, or I would say these would probably last no more than a week before they before they lose their crunch. If you happen to have, this is going to sound really silly, but if you happen to have any of those little silicone gel packs, I happen to save those sometimes, but if you have one of those little silicone gel packs that come sometimes in crackers or candies, you can stick that in the container and make sure it's airtight. But I would say maybe up to, up to a week before it starts to get, before it loses its crunch. But yes, you can absolutely make these ahead of time. So this, you'll want to break them up a little bit with a fork, and we're gonna set those aside and let those cool. And then at the very end of class, before you eat, we can assemble your salad. So we'll toss the cranberries and the goat cheese and the cooked bacon, and then the cooled, crumbled pecans or your whatever nut you're using on top of our salad, and then drizzle it with a little bit of the dressing. You don't want to do it too far ahead of time. You don't want to dress your salad too far ahead of time because you don't want it to get really soggy and really wet. You know, this is a pretty thick dressing, so we'll probably only need a little bit of this dressing. A great way to store salad dressing is in mason jars or little ball jars, so that you can just put it in the refrigerator. When you're ready to use it, just give it a good shake, use what you need, put it back in the refrigerator. So we can put all of our ingredients aside for now, and then we'll assemble it all, put it all to compose our salad right before we eat again, so that it really retains all of the best flavors. So now we're going to, I'll give everybody a couple of minutes and we're going to move on to the dessert. Because we are making a lemon curd and we want that to cool, we'll work on that together. Now for this one, and I'll just talk as everyone is getting ready. For this, you will need a food processor, or even if you have a small mini chop, that will work fine too. So I have my food processor here. I will give everybody a lemon zest tutorial. So again, I have all of my ingredients. I have my 4 eggs. I have my sugar. I have my lemons for zesting and for juicing. We always want to zest before we juice. It's really difficult to try to zest a lemon or any citrus that's already been juiced because it is so flimsy and unstable. You'll want to have your stick of unsalted butter. Especially with desserts, I always use unsalted butter because I like to. Oh, do I recommend a microplane? Not necessarily for this dish because we are making a lemon sugar. You can microplane an entire, 3 lemons, but for this, we're just going to use a regular peeler. So what I did for this is, and again, you want to make sure your berries are rinsed and dried and that you've got your pound cake. So for this recipe, you can use a vegetable peeler. And what we want to get are nice strips of the lemon. So you don't want you want very little of the white pit here. That is really, really bitter. We want all of the nice oils on the outside. So yes, you can go ahead and just microplane, which is a Microplane Zester for those of you who maybe have never worked with a Microplane Zester. This was patented by a woman. So this is a Microplane Zester, and it has all these little, it looks like a long box grater, a stick box grater. So it has all these little sharp grooves here where you can just go along your lemon, and this is the right angle to just pick up that zest, to just pick up that peel with all of those wonderful oils. So you can absolutely zest your three lemons, whatever is easier for you. If you don't have one of those tools, and this is what I tell, so thank you for asking. This is what I tell people if you don't have a Microplane Zester, is just get a regular peeler and gently work over the lemon and just try and get the very top peel. So sometimes it is a little harder with an actual peeler because it's really hard to get just that peel. And we are going to put all of this in a food processor. So what I want to make sure that everyone has ready for our dessert. So before we really get into each part, make sure that you have a saucepan and a spatula. Make sure you have a food processor. Again, that you have your 1.5 cups of white sugar measured out. You have your 4 eggs. You can go ahead and crack those 4 eggs into a bowl. That you have your stick of butter that's been sitting out so it's slightly soft, it's room temperature. That you have peeled those 3 lemons, and then you can juice those 3 lemons. If you didn't want to juice the lemons, you can absolutely use bottled lemon juice. We'll need about 1/2 cup of that, which out of the 3 lemons, out of the 2 lemons, actually 2 lemons that we juiced, we got a little bit more than 1/2 cup. Of course, your eggs and just a little bit of salt, but you want to make sure that you have your pot ready because we will just be going through all of these steps. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to first put the zest in the food processor, and this will pulse just a little bit on its own to break them up if you have the peels. So if you're like me and you have some of these peels, let's put them in the food processor. So you're going to hear me pulse those up just to break them up a little bit. So now I've broken those up just a little bit, but I'm going to add the sugar, and that will help really break it up. So we want the zest to be really, really fine. We don't want any big chunks in there, any big pieces. Okay, so. And you can, I'm going to scrape mine down, and you can keep it going until your zest is fine. Oh, it smells so good. So you really don't want any big, large pieces. Oh, that smells so good. That smells so good. So now I am going to take this out of my food processor and put it back into a small bowl, and I'm going to cream my butter and my eggs in that same food processor bowl. Now, one word of caution that I always tell people, whenever you are taking anything out of a food processor, make sure you take the blade out first. One, if you're using a rubber spatula, you're going to rip up your rubber spatula, and we don't want to do that. But also, you don't want to try and pour something out and then have the blade fall out and cut you. That is just dangerous. So always take that out. Oh, that lemon sugar smells so good. And if you happen to see any really, like at the bottom, sometimes you'll get a larger piece, just take that out. But if there's small, small little pieces, they'll all be candied. So. Okay, so, and it's all right if there's still a little bit of sugar. So now let's cream the butter. So I'm going to take my butter and I'm just going to break it up into smaller pieces and mix that in my food processor. I'm going to break that up a little bit just till it's smooth. Then I'll add the sugar.
Okay, oh, we do have a question.
Break down the sides.
We do have a question asking if the eggs are in the bowl.
Not yet. I have not added the eggs in yet. We are going to add those in one at a time once we add our sugar. So that's not the next step, but the step after that. So great question. So right now I have my creamed butter. I'm going to add my sugar. This is my lemon sugar back into the food processor. Add that back in there. Give it a nice scrape and blend that all together. So we're going to blend that until that's nice and creamy. So it's just like when you're making cookies and you cream the butter and sugar together. That's exactly what we're doing here. And then you add in those eggs one at a time. Don't forget to give it a quick pause and scrape any of that butter that may have kind of gotten to the side there. Now, if your food processor has a spout, rather than having to stop each time and open up the top, we can drop in one egg at a time, as best as you can, into the bowl. So now is when we're going to use those eggs. Stop it, and I'm going to drop one egg in as best as you can. Drop another egg in. Okay, so I have all 4 of my eggs in there. It should look really nice and a nice pale yellow. again, I'm going to scrape the sides. Make sure you watch out for those blades. I'm going to scrape the sides. I'm going to add a pinch of sugar and just do one last quick, I'm going to add a pinch of salt, I'm sorry.
Before you add the salt, can you talk about what you're looking for in between adding each egg? What is your signal that it's time to add the next one?
So I just put one egg in and just let it continue. I stopped, I added another egg. So your end result, you want a nice pale yellow, and it will look grainy, but you want a nice pale yellow mixture combination. You can add one egg. You certainly can scrape it down. I added one egg, kept it going, added another egg, kept it going, and then in the middle, I scraped it around. But now I've added that pinch of salt. And then that's it. And so now we are going to slowly thicken our lemon curd. So make sure once you've added all 4 eggs and your pinch of salt, when does the lemon juice go in? Oh, good question. So now we do need to add that. With your pinch of salt, add your lemon juice. Thank you for asking that. When it's not right in front of me, I'm going to pour that in through the same tunnel that I poured the eggs in. So, again, thank you for the reminder. So after you've added your 4 eggs, go ahead and add your pinch of salt and your ½ cup of fresh squeezed lemon juice. Give it a good mix. And again, it should be a really nice, super fragrant, really, really lemony mixture. So mine is very, very light yellow. And I am taking the blade out. And now I am going to give the bowl a good scrape and add all of this to my saucepan.
And while you're doing that, the juice that you added into that mix is the juice from the same 3 lemons that you zested, right?
Absolutely, yes. Now, yes, and you don't have to, you can certainly use bottled lemon juice if you wanted to save that for something else. But yes, I squeezed my lemons. I have a lemon juice reamer, but you can, certainly you'll want to squeeze them over something to get rid of the pits. You can squeeze them over a fork or a little strainer. You just obviously don't want any pits in there. But 2 to 3 lemons should give you a ½ cup of lemon juice. And if you have more, great, store it in your refrigerator. Use it for lemonade, make some fresh lemonade, but definitely save your lemon juice. Okay, so now I have my mixture in my saucepan, and we're going to put that on low. So I'm putting mine on a 3. And we are going to slowly heat this. So this will be our lemon curd. We're going to slowly heat this until it is thick. So it will take about 10 minutes. You will want to constantly give it a stir. If you happen to have a candy thermometer, whole stick, a quarter pound. So that is 1 stick. While this is cooking, again, this will take about 10 minutes or so. What is it, 7:43? Okay. We'll keep an eye on this. We will make our whipped cream. You should have already sliced up your pound cake, but I will show you, and I'll go through all the ingredients that you need for your whipped cream. We need our 2 cups of heavy whipping cream. You will need probably about a tablespoon, maybe a little more, depending on how sweet you like your whipped cream. And the reason why we're using confectioner sugar is because regular granulated sugar will not melt in something that is cold. So if ever you have gotten an iced coffee and you put in sugar, regular white sugar, it always comes to the bottom. Iced coffee, iced tea, it comes to the bottom. So by using the confectioner sugar, it will dissolve in there. And then we're also using a cup of that mascarpone cheese, which is an Italian cream cheese. And we will be whipping all of those things together. And again, that's something that you can do earlier in the day, for sure. So we'll definitely want to keep an eye on this lemon curd. But in the meantime, what I did for my trifle, and we'll build these together, is I'm making little parfaits. So I took my slices of pound cake and I put 1 slice at the base of each cup. Now, if you have a trifle dish, you can absolutely line the bottom of your trifle dish with your pound cake. I have my berries already rinsed, and I have blueberries. You can use raspberries, you can use blackberries, you know, strawberries, whatever your favorite berry is for that. So those are rinsed and drying. I have my cups made, and now we'll go ahead and make our whipped cream. So for that, I have my 2 cups of heavy cream. It's about a tablespoon or so of confectioner's sugar. Thea, could you get me the bowl in the freezer? I have my handy hand mixer. If you have a large stand mixer, you can absolutely use that. And now I'm going to get my bowl out of the freezer, where I put it in there to chill. Great. So you will want to keep an eye on your lemon curd and just keep giving it a stir. And you'll see that it will change from being very granular to, it almost looks like you're making a pudding, a vanilla or a lemon pudding. And that's the thickness that we are looking for in the lemon curd. We want it to be nice and thick. So this is on a low heat. Again, I have it on about a 3. And we're just going to slowly keep cooking this over a low heat until it starts to thicken. And it's the eggs that will, that we are slowly cooking to help thicken. So I have, the first thing we're going to do is whip the cream and the sugar. Now, if you have a bowl that does not have a rubber bottom, like this does not, I couldn't, Jen, could you read what that question was?
Oh, I'm sorry. It was a response to somebody else's question about when we would pass the YouTube, post the YouTube video. So
okay.
That. Sorry.
No, thank you. So this is a little trick. I don't even know where I learned this trick, but if you need to stabilize your bowl, of course you can use your 2 hands, but take your dish towel and wrap it up and almost make a little, like a bandana collar, a little collar. Oh yeah, or a little nest. My daughter said a little nest. And this will give your bowl a little bit of support. So if you need to stir something and not have it fly all over the place, if you need both hands, this certainly helps. It's just kind of a little collar. And I can see already my lemon curd getting, as you stir it, you see this really, really bright yellow emerging as you stir it. And I know, like right now, mine has some swirls in it. So mine is this really, it looks like there's a little bit of foaminess on the top. But just keep giving it a stir it every now and then. So now, first thing you're going to do is whip the cream. And then when the cream is almost ready, we are going to add our sugar. So this is my refrigerated bowl, or my bowl that I put in the freezer, actually. And I'm just going to whip this. So this is the ultimate multitasking. You know, almost holding the bowl steady, not only with the dish towel, but also with my stomach, which is embarrassing to say, my COVID tummy. But hey, it works.
So you have a question asking what makes the lemon mix, I believe it's the lemon mix, go from pale yellow to bright yellow. She could be talking about the lemon curd. So.
Oh, yes, yes, the lemon curd. I mean, you'll just see as you stir it. It's just the cooking of the eggs in there with the lemon juice, because it's so processed. So our sugar has dissolved, our butter has melted, and now our nice egg yolks have been mixed in there and are just starting to cook, starting to thicken with that sugar. So it's almost emulsified. And just give it a nice stir. All right, I'm going to add a little bit of my confectioner's sugar. And I'm going to keep whipping until it's soft peaks, and I'll show you what that means.
My curd is at temperature. Do I need to pull it out of the saucepan to prevent it from cooking more to another bowl?
Oh, so your curd is done?
Yes.
Okay, so once it's nice and thick, you can remove it from the heat. You can either put it into another bowl, or you can just take it off the heat and let it cool down to room temperature.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Somebody has asked about not having any vanilla in the whipped cream. Is that not necessary?
Well, that's really a preference, because we're folding in the mascarpone and we're adding the lemon curd, and we're doing a trifle, and my pound cake is very, very lemony. I actually am using one of the U-Crops pound cakes. So it's not necessary. It's just a flavor preference. If you want to add a little bit of vanilla extract or lemon extract, go right ahead. I would probably put in a teaspoon if you wanted to add that flavor in there. But it's nothing that has to go into whipped cream. What was that question about? Was that a question about the thickness?
Yes. Can you show how thick it is?
Right now, I mean, I can feel it getting thicker. You want it to be almost a pudding thickness. And let me grab a spoon just to show you what I mean by that. So you definitely want it to nap a spoon. Mine is almost there, but it's still very, very drippy, which that is not a very good culinary term, drippy. But you want to keep mixing it. You want to keep scraping the sides and the bottom because you don't want any of that curd to start to burn. So you want it to be thick like a pudding. That's probably the best way to describe the thickness. I mean, you can see my spatula already is starting to get coated. And do not, no matter how tempting it is, go and take a taste because it is super hot and not only will it burn your finger, but it'll burn your tongue. But mine, as I get it a little bit over me, you know, you certainly don't want your curd to start to bubble at all. That means that it's too hot. So again, mine, I've just kept it on a steady 3. So yes, you want that pudding consistency. And I can tell that mine is almost there. This has been cooling, so I'm gonna take a taste. Oh, it's good. That is a good lemon curd. And you know, you probably won't use all of this in your dish. This is, I mean, it's really a pretty simple recipe, but if ever, you know, when we go back to entertaining, it makes great little, you can buy those little phyllo cups in the freezer section where the frozen desserts are. And you can just fill those little cups and maybe put a raspberry on top or a blueberry on top. And there is a nice little spring and summertime treat. Okay, my lemon curd is almost done, but it's still, it just needs to get a little bit thicker. But again, you want it to be able to coat a spoon and you want it to be almost pudding-like. All right, but just make sure you keep scraping those sides. In the meantime, I'm going to finish whipping my cream. Now at this point, I want it to be a little stiffer than what it is. Right now, it doesn't even hold a peak, which means I can lift up the beaters and I don't see that nice little flop of a peak. So this probably needs another minute, and then you can take a spatula and gently kind of fold in this mascarpone cheese. If you feel like it is not folding well and you need to give it a quick mix, go ahead, because this is just going to be a really nice creamy layer in between your pound cake and your lemon curd. And your lemon curd will thicken as it cools too. So once it gets that pudding-like consistency, take it off the heat and let it cool.
Will the lemon curd continue to gel as it cools?
Yes, now mine hold a nice peak. So I pull up my beaters and I get that nice, almost like soft serve top to it. When you go to taste it, if you need to taste for sweetness and you want to add a little bit more, stop your hand mixer, pull it aside, and take a taste. Don't try and taste it when you're still beating the whipped cream. Again, that's just dangerous, and we don't want to mess with danger.
Before you go to the next thing, I think we had a question that you probably couldn't hear over the sound of the mixer, and that was whether the lemon curd would continue to gel as it cooled.
Yes, yes, I believe once you get that pudding-like consistency, take it off the heat, let it cool, and yes, it will continue to thicken as it cools. So now I just have a whisk, and I am gently kind of whisking in my mascarpone cheese, which has been sitting out at room temperature. So it's already nice and soft. And you can certainly try and give it a little bit of a whip with your hand mixer. But I'm just gently kind of folding this all in there together. And this will just really make a really delicious, creamy, you know, our lemon curd is very sweet. My pound cake is sweet. So it's okay if this is not as sweet. Okay, now let me get my spatula. Really blend this in. Now another safety tip, when you go to remove the beaters from your hand mixer, please unplug your hand mixer first. Same thing with a KitchenAid, a stand mixer. Unplug it before you go to take it off any attachment. Unplug it. I do have a great chef friend who accidentally got her fingers caught in the paddle of her hand mixer. So always just unplug it. All right, so I still have some nice air in here. I've mixed in my mascarpone. And the mascarpone does have, you know, there is a little bit of texture still left in here. But again, that's okay. It just adds to the creaminess of your dish. So this, now that I've mixed it all in, I'm going to put this back in the refrigerator. And we will assemble these after we make our risotto. So you have your lemon curd that is sitting off the heat, just letting it cool in the pan. If you want to transfer it into another bowl, you absolutely can, but you don't have to. So I put that aside. I'm taking my whipped cream with my folded mascarpone, and I'm just going to put this in the refrigerator to keep it cool. You can certainly cover it if you'd like, but you don't have to. It all depends on what else is in your refrigerator. If you have some leftover Chinese food, you may want to cover. All right, so that I'm gonna put aside. Again, I'll give everybody a few minutes and we will do our last dish, our risotto, and that will be done from beginning to end. And then we'll assemble our dessert and our salad, and we'll be ready to go for a really fantastic 3-course meal. Did you put this in the refrigerator? All right. So for our risotto, you'll want a nice, you could use a saute pan. I'm using a deeper saute pan. This is about a 6-quart saute pan, but any, saute pan will do for your risotto. If you have something with some sides, that's perfect. So some of the homework before our class was to soak some dried porcini mushrooms. I had some dried shiitake mushrooms that I rehydrated, I reconstituted. And again, I have everything measured out for me. So again, I'll give everybody a couple of minutes to put all of your stuff aside from our trifle. And get our mushroom risotto ingredients. So I'll go over the ingredients for our risotto. Of course, you have your dried mushrooms that have been soaking in some warm water. If you did not do that ahead of time, go ahead and heat up a cup of water in the microwave, and you can go ahead and throw those dried mushrooms in there now. If you just have fresh mushrooms, we'll go ahead and we'll use those fresh mushrooms. That is great. So you'll want to have had your 3 cups of broth, vegetable broth, chicken broth. If you don't have either of those, you can certainly use some water. Your dried mushrooms, your 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter. So that's half a stick of unsalted butter. I know that sounds like a lot, but it will be delicious in the end. Your 3/4 cup of arborio rice, which I know you can even get arborio rice at Kroger. And that is a great little short grain rice that as we slowly cook it, will release a really, really creamy, starchy texture that will just make our dish, again, very, very creamy. We have our 2 cups of wild mushrooms. Now that could be button mushrooms. Oh, it just gives you a real mushroom boost because we are using that soaking liquid in our risotto dish as well. So since they are dried, they're really, really concentrated in flavor. And so that gives you that special kind of umami taste and flavor when you're making your risotto. I love to grind. I'll take some dried mushrooms and I'll put them in a spice grinder. So I have 2. I have a coffee grinder and then I have one that I use for spices, but it just makes a great dusting if you're going to do some chicken cutlets. And you can put them in those dried mushroom kind of powder. Again, it just gives it this special earthy taste to it. We have our 2/3 cup white wine. If you don't use if you don't like to cook with alcohol, again, water is fine for that. Some salt, some flat leaf parsley, which will be for garnish, as well as some really delicious Parmesan cheese or Reggiano cheese. Now for the mushrooms, what you'll want to do, where is my cup here? For the mushrooms, so I had the mushrooms soaking in a Pyrex dish with the warm water. I took out the mushrooms, they were nice and soft, and I chopped them up along with all of my other mushrooms. But what you will find is that it will get some grit at the bottom of your soaking liquid. We don't want that. So you could use a little tea strainer. You could use any type of strainer, fine mesh strainer that you have, and just pour that right through. And that will capture any little pieces of, as I said, little pieces of grit that may be at the bottom of your soaking liquid. So we'll put those aside. And then we also want one shallot, which I don't see. If you don't have the shallot with you, because I did not put it in the, I didn't put it in the recipe, but I put it in the grocery list. If you don't happen to have a shallot handy, grab an onion. Grab a white onion or a red onion. And if you don't have either of those, that's okay. So here is my onion tutorial. So for this, we want it finely chopped. So an onion has a stem end and a root end. So what we're going to do first is we're going to cut off the stem end because we want a nice flat surface to cut our onion or our shallot. It's really difficult to try and finely chop around onion, around product. I'm going to cut off the stem, and now I have a nice flat surface. I'm going to cut right through the center of the root, which will give me 2 flat sides. So now I'm going to take the peel off. Take that nice papery layer off, which sometimes it cannot be, it's not very easy to take off. So for this, I want a nice finely diced shallot. So I take my knife and halfway through the cut side, I am going to cut not all the way through the root. I'm going to cut about 3/4 of the way through, right here. So it's 3/4 of the way through. My purpose of doing this one, it's a really simple technique to cook your, to cut your onions or your shallots. Also, there's nothing worse than chopping up an onion or a shallot and having it go all over the cutting board and then all over the floor. We want it nice and contained. So I made my one cut 3/4 of the way through, and now I'm going to cut straight down, almost following the natural lines of your shallot, but I'm going to cut straight through. But again, I'm going to cut straight down, but not all the way through. So I'm making nice 1/4-inch cuts. But as you can see, everything is still intact, right? So nothing is flying all over the place. So I'm going to, again, I'm not cutting through the root. Once I've done cross horizontally and I've sliced it down, I am now going to put my hand in a claw, tuck my thumb in to hold the root, and use those front digits, your first digits of your fingers, as your guide. So you just want to make nice cuts down, and as you get closer to the root end and it starts to feel a little uncomfortable, just place that shallot right down, face down, and cut around your root. So now I have some nice diced shallots, and they're all in a neat pot. So here we go again. We'll do it again. 3/4 of the way through. Again, I'm not going through the root. Now I'm going to cut straight down, but not straight through my shallot. Again, everything is intact. And now you just make the claw, tuck your thumb in. Believe me, my first chef job, well, not a chef, but my first cooking job, I was in a 4-star restaurant in Manhattan. And the first week that I was there, of course, I'm very, very nervous, and it's a quiet kitchen. It's a small kitchen, and I nearly lobbed the top of my thumb off because I did not tuck it in. So I definitely learned my lesson. Now I keep it tucked in. Not to say that I haven't almost done it before, but just try and keep that in there. And that is the same technique you can use when you need to dice an onion. It keeps everything nice and neat together, which is what we like. Okay, so you should now have all of your ingredients out and ready to prepare our risotto, which is a creamy, delicious rice dish. You know, you could add a little saffron to it if you wanted to. You could do a nice shrimp risotto. In terms of doing a shrimp risotto, I like to cook the shrimp ahead of time and then add them in later. So now that I have my broth, I'm going to heat this pan over medium heat and add half of the butter. So about 2 tablespoons of your butter. And I'm going to let that melt in there. And where it says to saute the rice, first we're going to saute the shallots or the onions. And why are we going to saute the rice in the butter? Because we want to get all of those little rice granules coated with a little bit of fat. It's very similar when you're making maybe a rice pilaf. You kind of toast that rice a little bit ahead of time. So this you want to put on a good medium-high heat. You should have your broth nearby. And again, I'm using a wooden spoon. A wooden spoon, I don't know, for some reason, risotto and a wooden spoon just kind of go together. So I'm adding in my shallots first. And I'm going to saute those. Just until they're nice and translucent, which means they don't have that sharp, sharp white color anymore, and they're a little bit opaque. So you can almost see through them. We don't necessarily need any color on these shallots. We just want to bring out some of the natural flavors from this. All right, I can start to hear them cooking, which is what you want. Okay, now that you've sauteed those shallots a little bit, go ahead and add your rice. Okay, you'll want to make sure that your mushrooms are all chopped up. And that is just a rough chop. So that is both your soaked mushrooms, your dried mushrooms, and your fresh mushrooms. I have a mixture of oyster and shiitake mushrooms, as well as some button and some little baby bella. So I can hear that my rice is starting to toast with that melted butter. Now I don't want any color in my rice. It should still be pretty nice and white. If you see any granules of rice starting to pop a little bit, go ahead and add in your mushrooms.
Do you have any recommendations on places to get good varieties of fresh mushrooms locally?
Yes. Well, if you want really good, fresh, local mushrooms, you can go to, I know the south of the James Farmers Market, which is now in Bryan Park in off of Lakeside in the north side, Haas mushrooms. Actually, I think there are 2 mushroom vendors there where you can get a whole variety of freshly picked local grown mushrooms. But I know places like Elwood Thompson's and Good Foods Grocery, which is over on the south side off of Huguenot. They have a nice selection of local mushrooms, but even Wegmans has a really nice selection of a variety of mushrooms. Wegmans and Fresh Market. I know both of those, for those of you who are over on the south side, Wegmans and Fresh Market. And of course, Whole Foods will too, but sometimes your local farmers markets will definitely have some local mushrooms that you can use, but those are great places. All right, I'm gonna add in my mushrooms, and I'm gonna give those a little bit of a stir as well. And your pan will look very dry, but that's okay. Mushrooms, naturally, you could actually saute mushrooms in a pan without any oil or butter. Oh, sure, Paula. Without any oil or butter, because mushrooms naturally are like sponges, and so they have a lot of moisture in them on their own. So when you go to clean mushrooms, please do not immerse them in water, because then when you go to saute them, all that water will then come out and you'll get a texture similar to a canned mushroom, which is nothing that any of us probably want. So make sure if you do put them underwater, just maybe put them in a colander and give them a quick, rinse under some water, or even just take a damp towel and wipe them off. But try not to submerge your mushrooms before you start to cook with them. Okay, so I've added my mushrooms. I have my shallots. I did 2 tablespoons of butter. Then I sauteed my shallots. I went in and I added my rice and I toasted those, got those nice and toasty. I added both my chopped dried mushrooms and my fresh mushrooms. And now it's time to add in your wine. So that's 2/3 cup of white wine. And we want to burn off that alcohol and get that concentrated grapey flavor. That will give us our little bit of acid. Okay, now, keep on stirring. Risotto is a dish of patience. It'll take a total of about 20 minutes to get it to where your rice is nice and tender and creamy. All right, so all of my liquid has evaporated. So a lot of that, make sure, again, you're constantly stirring. Now you'll want to take your warm broth and add just enough liquid to cover the rice. And this will want to lower the heat. Again, I have mine on about a 4.5. And this you'll want to let sit for maybe 3 to 4 minutes. Now you can also add that strained, go ahead and add that strained mushroom broth, the mushroom water, to your chicken or vegetable stock. That'll just, again, give that really nice umami taste. And this you want to keep an eye on.
If we're using fresh mushrooms, how do you know when it's time to add liquid?
So when making a risotto, you know it's time to add more liquid when almost all of that first batch of liquid has evaporated. So in this step, we start adding our liquid when the wine has disappeared. So again, it's letting that sit and cook for 3 or 4 minutes, giving it a stir occasionally, adding a little bit more liquid give that a stir occasionally until it gets nice and creamy. So I'm going to give that a couple of stirs. Now, while we're doing that, this is not going to take a lot more effort other than continuously, stirring it. And make sure that you have your chopped parsley, you have your cheese ready. Those will be what we are going to finish our dish with. All right, now I can see that and you don't want to rush this. You don't want to turn this on a really high heat just to keep adding, hoping that it will cook faster. We're letting this rice turn really creamy. And as we stir it, as we move it around, as we slowly add more broth, the rice granules will become they release a really creamy starch. All right, so right now I see most of my liquid has evaporated from my pan. So I'm going to add a little bit more. Now this is my warm liquid. So I'm going to add a little bit more. And I am going to, depending on how salty your broth is. So take a taste of your broth. And if your broth already has a lot of salt in it, you may not need to add too much salt to your risotto. And we're going to just let that keep cooking. While that is cooking, we can go ahead and assemble our trifle. So you should have your berries. You should have your berries, your lemon curd, which mine has really set really nicely. So I have this beautiful, beautiful yellow, really, really bright yellow curd, and it's very thick, which is perfect. That's exactly what we want. So you can get out your whipped cream with the mascarpone. And this is just a matter of layering. Now you can absolutely put these in the refrigerator for a later time. And we will not add in for our risotto. I'm sorry, did someone have a question? Kind of disappeared before I got to it.
How long will a spare lemon curd save in the refrigerator?
So put your lemon curd, if you're putting your lemon curd in a, like a Rubbermaid or a Tupperware type of container, take a piece of plastic wrap and put it right on top of the lemon curd, just like you would a guacamole, just so it doesn't form a skin. And it will last in there, I would say, at least a couple of weeks. Use it. It is, let's see, what is lemon? Well, lemon curd is good on like a cookie. It's just good on a spoon. But I would probably a couple of weeks in your refrigerator is fine. But yes, if you keep that piece of plastic wrap on, it will help prevent a skin from forming. All right, so let's get these parfait glasses. Hey, Dave, could you grab me the whipped cream? I have my berries. The big bowl of whipped cream. And I so I have a giant bowl of whipped cream. So what I am going to do, now again, multitasking. Every now and then, give that a good stir. We want to get our risotto really, really nice and creamy. So I'm going to do, I have my parfait glasses. I've lined the bottom with my pound cake. For these glasses, these are rocks glasses. One thin piece of slice of pound cake is fine. Put a good, this is a good couple of tablespoons worth of lemon curd. And let it drip over the side. Over the sides of the pound cake, not over the sides of your glass. That. Then I am going to put a few berries on top of the lemon curd. Lemon and blueberries, oh my goodness, what a fantastic pair. All right, giving that a stir. It's almost ready for some more stock. Now these, after we do the layers, you can put them in the refrigerator. And these are good, you know, you can probably, they may be a little soft. What's today, Thursday? I'd say they'd be good through the weekend, but if you are going to serve them on the weekend, then I would not assemble. I would just have all the parts made. Even the whipped cream, I would have it all made ahead of time. Okay, now we'll put a little bit of the whipped cream. I'm gonna stir this, give that a nice stir, and you should start to see your risotto turning really nice and creamy without adding cream. And I know you're probably thinking, oh my God, this is the longest rice dish I've ever made. But again, risotto is kind of a dish of patience. So we'll just let that rice cook. Now I'm gonna take the mascarpone. Just a dollop of that. And this is so pretty in a trifle dish or even in some clear parfait glasses.
Can you talk about what the layers would look like if it was in a trifle dish?
You would do the exact same thing. So you would line the bottom of your trifle dish, which I don't have, well, actually similar. So this is a little bit more conical. You know, a trifle dish is has straighter sides. But so say this was my trifle dish, I would do the exact same thing. I would slice my pound cake, probably maybe about an inch thick, and cut it in half, and line the bottom with a pound cake. You can actually even kind of press it down. But I'd line the bottom. Then I would take my lemon curd, same thing. I would do a whole layer of lemon curd so that you can almost see the layers. Do the lemon curd, do the berries, then do the whipped cream. And the nice thing about the lemon curd is that it's not so stiff that it won't drip down, kind of seep down into those layers of pound cake. So you get just really a nice burst of lemon and cream and cake. And of course the berries all in one. And then you can just continue to layer. I would have my top layer as my cream, my whipped cream, and then just garnish it. You can garnish it with some blueberries and some lemon zest with that microplane. And that is it's a perfect picnic when we're all back out celebrating with each other.
Do you repeat the cake layer as part of that, or?
Exactly, yes, you do the exact same thing. So you do cake, curd, berries, cream. Cake, curd, berries, cream. So you would do that with a trifle dish because it's so deep. You may get more than 2 layers. So just, this will be enough for definitely 2 layers of trifle, where the top layer would be the cream. So yes, you would just repeat the exact same layers. All right, how's everybody's risotto? I guess I need a little fork to taste it, or a spoon. So definitely taste your rice. You know, we know our mushrooms are cooked. So you want your rice. How do you know your rice is done? You want your rice granule to still have a little bite to it. So you don't want it to crunch, you don't want it to be raw, but you still want a little bite. And mine is just there. You could see just, you know, if you bit it and you looked at it, which is really difficult to do because they are so small, but there's still a little bit of white in there, but mine is ready. I can bite right through it. So you just want it a little bit al dente, and you may still have a little bit of broth left. That's fine. So what I'm going to do right now, now that mine is ready, I'm going to shut it off. I'm going to shut off the heat. I'm going to shut off the heat. I'm going to add the rest of my butter. So that's 2 more tablespoons of butter. I'm going to break that in there. I am going to really move my butter, melt my butter. I'm going to add my chopped parsley. Now, if you don't have fresh parsley, but you have dried parsley, you can absolutely use dried parsley for this. I would just use half of the amount. Whenever you are substituting dried for fresh, use half of the amount that you would for fresh, just because your dried parsley, your dried herb is concentrated, it's dry. So I would definitely, so you would only need to use half of the amount. And then I'm going to add my cheese. Now the amount of cheese is up to you. If you want to add more cheese, you absolutely can. And mix that in there. And you want it, and if you think your risotto needs to be a little creamier, I'm just gonna add a little bit more broth. Just maybe a 1/4 cup, not even a lot. Your cheese should be melted. Don't forget to taste for salt and pepper. If you like a little bit of heat to your dish, you can go ahead and either add a little bit of hot Spanish paprika or add a couple of red chili flakes in there. That would be really nice. All right, so now I'm going to taste for seasoning. Oh my goodness, the dried, it's amazing the flavor that you get from the dried mushrooms. It almost tastes like a really creamy homemade mushroom soup with rice. But the whole thing is just, oh, it's like a flavor bomb. I'm gonna add a little bit of ground pepper and just a touch of salt. And I am going to put that aside. Oh, it looks so pretty. you know, I have the parsley mixed in there. I have, you know, all of the fresh and dried mushrooms. Oh, that is just delicious.
And
okay.
where would you recommend getting dried mushrooms?
I know Wegmans has dried mushrooms. I know any of the more specialty grocery stores, Whole Foods has dried mushrooms. The dried mushrooms that I used were dried shiitakes that I got from an Asian market, from an international market. So you can even get them there. But if you're over there on the south side, I would definitely go to Wegmans. Publix may, and I want to say I believe they do. I know Fresh Market does, and I know Wegmans does. And you can find those dried mushrooms, usually, I know at Wegmans where right near the fresh mushrooms, they have kind of a side area where they have some other dried, I think they also have dried fruit there, but I know that they have a nice selection of dried mushrooms. So as that's kind of cooling just slightly, we can finish our dessert. So I'm going to put another layer of cake. And I'm sure, I have a feeling that my desserts are going to be a little overflowing, but who says, you know, you can't have an overflowing dessert? So we're going to put that there.
Martha Schulman, if you will show us your trifle again. It looked lovely. I'm sorry, she held it up to the camera and then she walked away. That's beautiful.
Oh, wow. Well, I can't see, but I'm sure it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, see how pretty it is? All right, so then you just continue the layers. Lemon curd.
Deborah, oh, everybody's showing this now. This is great. I know you can't see it. You're busy assembling, but everybody's showing their desserts. They look delicious.
Oh, yay. Awesome. Now, don't forget. So for mine, because mine are all the way up at the top, I'm going to go ahead and add the cream and then put the berries on top. So I'm going to go ahead and add the cream. Now if this is what you're having for dessert this evening, you can certainly just put this right in the refrigerator to have when you are all done. But don't forget to compose our salad. Now, you know, risotto is Italian. So if you want to eat like the Italians do, I know my 100-year-old Italian grandfather, he eats his salad after his dinner because it helps with digestion. So he's 100, so I think he must have something is right there. So you can go ahead and build your salad. Give your vinaigrette a good whisk. Now, hopefully, give your vinaigrette a good whisk. And again, taste for seasoning. I'm going to top these desserts with some blueberries. And then we'll finish off our salad. So in my salad bowl, I'm adding in, I have my spinach. Now, if you're bringing this to the table, get a really nice salad bowl. Get out the salad plates. You know, why not? Why not celebrate? It's Little Friday, right? Tomorrow's Thursday. I mean, today is Thursday, tomorrow's Friday. Oh my goodness. So you can tell I'm ready for the end of the week. So I have my bacon. Actually, this is, again, some sauteed prosciutto. I have my goat cheese, which you can go ahead and buy the crumbled goat cheese. And I have my dressing. Oh, and now let's see how everyone's. So almonds, my candied almonds. Don't forget to take a taste. Nice and crunchy, and a little bit of that vinegar. I shouldn't say it doesn't make it sour, but it does give a really interesting taste to it. So I would not toss your candied pecans or your candied almonds into the salad unless you're going to eat all of this salad this evening. I would keep these on the side and add them on the side only because you don't want them, if they're in the salad and then it's put away for another day, they'll start to get soft and they won't still have that really nice caramel crunch to it, like that caramel candy crunch to it. So just break those up. Again, another reason why we sprayed it with some nonstick spray, so we can just break it up into almost like a brittle. And then get yourself a nice little salad plate, which I know I have a little salad plate around here somewhere. Do you have a plate over here, Dia? Or just grab me that rectangle. Yeah. So we have our spinach salad here. And this has all of the toppings on it. Now I'm going to add a little bit of my vinaigrette. Just add a little drizzle of that vinaigrette. This is great stored in a mason jar. And then you can just give it a shake whenever you want. And then you take your candied nuts, just sprinkle those on top. It's hard not to snack on them when you're garnishing your salad. And that's another reason why whenever you get a salad to go, they often put the nuts in a separate little pack, only because you don't want it to get soggy. So that is your salad here. Then we will get our little bowl for our risotto. So we get our nice bowl of risotto. And if you have a little extra parsley or cheese, you can kind of garnish the top, a little extra of that. Again, you eat with your eyes first. So make sure that your dinner tonight or whenever you're going to eat this or any day looks great. You can even make a bowl of oatmeal look really fancy. So we have our salad. We have our delicious risotto. And then of course, got to have a dessert. And I will leave that up to you. If you want to eat your dessert first, you worked hard, you are welcome to. And that's our dinner for today. I'm sorry that you may have some dishes to do tonight, but hopefully you're cooking with other people that can help you with those dishes. But the risotto reheats really well. You may need just a little bit more broth. It reheats fine in the microwave, but if you have a small little skillet and you can kind of move a little butter and a little broth in there, that will again make it super, super creamy. So thank you all for joining us today. Thank you to the Chesterfield Library for organizing this, and I can't wait until April. I believe it's April 1st is the next class. So we hope that you join us again. I know we have some more spring things coming up, so enjoy.
Yes, thank you very much. This was lovely, and I didn't get to cook anything, but I'm starving just watching all of you. And
sorry, I know. Good thing, almost a good thing we don't have smell-o-vision, you know.
So I see the Bartle family is seated at their table and they are eating. So that is fantastic. And
oh, fantastic. And, this is a great,
too.
Yeah, and this can easily be, a really wonderful vegetarian dinner, for like a meatless Monday. You don't have to put the, the bacon in your salad. So it really it really is filling. I know you're like, oh, it's vegetables and rice, but it really is a nice filling dish. So,
thank you.
Ciao. Bon appetito. Enjoy, everybody.
Thank you very much,
Until
everybody.